The asphalt shimmered under the relentless Florida sun as shoppers hurried from their air-conditioned cars into the blessed coolness of the Palmetto Grove shopping center. It was the kind of day where tempers ran as hot as the temperature, 92 degrees and climbing with humidity that made the air feel like soup. Patricia Davidson sighed with relief as she turned her white Lexus SUV into the crowded parking lot. The day had already been a disaster. Her real estate closing had fallen through at the last minute, costing her a commission she'd been counting on. Her ex-husband, Martin, had called to say he couldn't take the kids this weekend, meaning she'd have to reschedule her spa appointment. And now, circling the lot for the third time, she couldn't find a single empty space. "You've got to be kidding me," she muttered, drumming her French manicured nails against the steering wheel. "I just need to grab a few things. How hard can it be to find one stupid parking space?" As she rounded the corner near the entrance, Patricia spotted it, an empty space right by the automatic doors. Perfect. Without hesitation, she swung her SUV into the spot, ignoring the blue and white sign with the wheelchair symbol. She checked her reflection in the rearview mirror, fluffed her highlighted blonde bob, and grabbed her designer handbag from the passenger seat. "I'll just be 5 minutes," she justified to herself. "Nobody will even notice." But someone did notice. Eleanor Williams had been watching from her modest sedan 3 spaces down, waiting for her arthritis medication to kick in before attempting the walk to the store. The 67-year-old retired schoolteacher had been living with rheumatoid arthritis for over a decade, and some days were worse than others. Today was definitely one of the bad ones. Eleanor's weathered hands gripped her cane as she slowly made her way toward Patricia, who was now locking her car. "Excuse me," Eleanor called out, her voice steady despite her discomfort. "I don't mean to intrude, but are you aware that you've parked in a handicapped space?" Patricia turned, her expression immediately hardening. "I'm just running in for a minute." "That's not really the point," Eleanor persisted. "Those spaces are reserved for people who need them. Do you have a permit?" Patricia's face flushed. "Look, it's 100 degrees out here. The store is packed. I'll be in and out before anyone else needs it." "I need it," Eleanor said simply, gesturing to her cane. "And I've been driving around waiting for one to open up." "Well, you should have been quicker," Patricia snapped, turning away. "Maybe next time." Eleanor's jaw tightened. "I'm going to have to report this to management." Patricia whirled around, her designer sunglasses sliding down her nose. "Mind your own business, lady." "What are you, the parking police?" As their voices rose, a small crowd of curious onlookers began to gather. Among them was Tyler Hayes, a 28-year-old content creator who ran the YouTube channel Public Encounters. With nearly 500,000 subscribers, Tyler had built his platform documenting exactly these kinds of confrontations, moments where everyday citizens stood up against entitlement and rudeness. Tyler had been heading into the store when he heard the commotion. Instinctively, he pulled out his smartphone and began to record, staying at a respectful distance. "Ma'am," Eleanor continued, undeterred by Patricia's hostility, "I'm simply asking you to follow the rules that everyone else follows. These spaces exist for a reason. And I'm simply telling you to back off." Patricia's voice had taken on a shrill edge. "I've had a terrible day, and I don't need some busybody making it worse." Eleanor shook her head sadly. "Your bad day doesn't entitle you to break the law." That's when Patricia noticed Tyler standing nearby, phone raised, clearly recording the interaction. Her eyes widened in outrage. "And what do you think you're doing?" she demanded, striding toward him. "Are you filming me? You don't have my permission to film me." Tyler remained calm, taking a step back to maintain distance. "This is a public place, ma'am. I'm well within my rights to record." "Delete that right now," Patricia demanded, her perfectly made-up face contorting with anger. "I'm sorry, but I won't be doing that," Tyler replied evenly. "You're parked illegally, and you're being hostile to this woman who simply pointed it out." Patricia's eyes darted around, suddenly aware of the growing audience. Some had their own phones out now, sensing that something dramatic was unfolding. "You have no idea who I am," Patricia hissed, jabbing a finger toward Tyler's chest. "It could make your life very difficult." "Is that a threat?" Tyler asked, his voice remaining steady as he continued recording. And just like that, what had started as a parking dispute was about to explode into something much bigger. Something that would change both their lives in ways neither could imagine. "I don't make threats," Patricia snarled, her face now inches from Tyler's camera. "I make promises. Turn that thing off now, or you'll regret it." Tyler took another step back, maintaining his composure. "Ma'am, I understand you're upset, but there's no need for this to escalate. Why don't you just move your car to a regular space? Don't tell me what to do." Patricia's voice had risen to a near scream now, drawing even more attention. The small gathering had grown to almost a dozen curious shoppers, forming a loose circle around the conflict. "Who do you think you are?" Eleanor, still standing nearby with her cane, tried once more to defuse the situation. "Please, let's all calm down. There's no need for—" "You stay out of this," Patricia snapped without looking at her. "This is between me and this wannabe journalist." Tyler continued recording, his voice remaining calm. "I'm just documenting what's happening in a public space. That's all." "Oh, I get it now." Patricia's lips curled into a sneer. "You're one of those pathetic YouTubers trying to get famous by harassing innocent people. Well, guess what? You picked the wrong woman today." With unexpected speed, Patricia lunged forward, her manicured hand swinging toward Tyler's phone. Tyler, caught off guard by the sudden movement, jerked backward but wasn't quick enough. Patricia's fingernails scraped against his wrist as she made contact. "Give me that phone!" she demanded, making another grab for it. "Ma'am, please stop. You're assaulting me," Tyler warned, continuing to back away. The crowd gasped, several people now recording the escalating confrontation on their own devices. But Patricia was beyond reason now, her face flushed with rage. She swung again, this time aiming directly for Tyler's face. In a split-second reaction of self-preservation, Tyler raised his arm to block the blow and pushed back against her shoulder. Not hard, but enough to create space between them. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Patricia, thrown off balance by Tyler's defensive move and her own momentum, stumbled backward. Her designer heel caught in a crack in the asphalt, and she went down, landing unceremoniously on her rear end with a yelp of surprise. A collective "Ooh!" rose from the crowd, followed by a few nervous laughs. Patricia sat there, stunned, her immaculate white sundress now smudged with parking lot grime, her sunglasses askew on her face. "You pushed me!" she shrieked, her voice cracking with indignation. "He pushed me!" "Did everyone see that? He assaulted me." "No, ma'am, that's not what happened," came a voice from the crowd. A middle-aged man in a golf shirt stepped forward. "You went after him first. He was just defending himself." "That's right," added another woman, nodding vigorously. "You tried to hit him. We all saw it." Patricia scrambled to her feet, her composure completely shattered. "You're all against me. This is ridiculous. I'm calling the police right now." She fumbled in her purse for her phone, her hands shaking with rage. "You're all going to be sorry, especially you." She pointed at Tyler, who was still recording. "I'm going to sue you for everything you have." "Go ahead and call them," Tyler replied calmly. "I have the whole thing on video, and so do at least 5 other people here." As if on cue, a security guard from the shopping center came jogging over, walkie-talkie in hand. "What's going on here?" he demanded, looking between Patricia and Tyler. "This man assaulted me," Patricia declared, pointing dramatically at Tyler, "and I want him arrested." "That's not true," Eleanor interjected, stepping forward with her cane. "This young man was simply recording when this woman parked illegally in a handicapped spot. She became aggressive and tried to attack him." The security guard, A former police officer named Hector Rodriguez sized up the situation quickly. "Ma'am, is that your white Lexus in the handicapped spot?" "What does that have to do with anything?" Patricia retorted. "This man pushed me to the ground." "Do you have a handicap permit for that vehicle?" Rodriguez persisted. "No, but I was just going to be a minute." "I've already called the police," Rodriguez interrupted. "They'll sort this out. I suggest everyone stay put until they arrive." Patricia's face went pale. "The police? That's completely unnecessary. I don't have time for this." "You should have thought about that before you parked illegally and attacked someone," came a voice from the crowd, followed by several murmurs of agreement. Tyler, still recording, turned to address his camera directly for the first time. "So guys, this is what happens when entitlement meets consequences. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to see how this all plays out. I have a feeling we're just getting started." The sound of distant sirens confirmed Rodriguez's words. The police were indeed on their way. Patricia, realizing the severity of her situation, suddenly changed tactics. "Look," she said, her voice softening as she turned to Tyler. "I think we got off on the wrong foot here. I've had a really stressful day and I overreacted. Let's just delete the videos and forget this whole thing happened, okay?" Tyler shook his head. "I'm sorry, but that's not how this works. You chose to park illegally. You chose to be rude to an elderly woman with a disability, and you chose to try to assault me. Those were all your choices, and now you get to experience the consequences." As the police cruiser pulled into the parking lot, lights flashing, Patricia Davidson realized that her bad day had just gotten infinitely worse. "Don't forget to like and comment below with your thoughts on this situation," Tyler continued to his audience. "Is this justice being served, or did I handle this wrong? Let me know what you think." The police cruiser rolled to a stop, its blue and red lights painting the gathered crowd in alternating colors. Two officers emerged, Officer Brenda Martinez, a veteran with 15 years on the force, and her younger partner, Officer Jason Collins. "What seems to be the problem here?" Officer Martinez asked, her experienced eyes quickly scanning the scene. The white Lexus in the handicapped space, the disheveled woman in the once pristine white dress, the young man still holding up his phone, and the ring of onlookers with their own devices raised. Before anyone else could speak, Patricia stepped forward. "Thank goodness you're here, officers. This man," she pointed accusingly at Tyler, "assaulted me in front of all these people. I want to press charges immediately." Officer Collins took out his notepad. "Ma'am, could I get your name, please?" "Patricia Davidson. I'm a realtor with Coastal Luxury Properties." She straightened her posture, attempting to regain some dignity. "My card is in my purse if you need it." "And is that your vehicle in the handicapped parking space, Ms. Davidson?" Officer Martinez asked, gesturing toward the Lexus. Patricia's confidence faltered slightly. "Well, yes, but that's not what this is about. This man pushed me to the ground." "Do you have a handicap permit for that vehicle?" "No, but I was only going to be a minute. This is about him assaulting me." Officer Martinez nodded patiently. "We'll get to that. Sir, could I get your name as well?" "Tyler Hayes," he replied, lowering his phone but not stopping the recording. "And I have the entire incident on video, officers. She became aggressive when I started recording her parking illegally and harassing this elderly woman." He gestured toward Eleanor. "He's lying," Patricia interjected. "He deliberately provoked me and then pushed me when I asked him to stop filming." Security guard Rodriguez stepped forward. "Officers, I didn't see the beginning of the confrontation, but when I arrived, this woman was clearly the aggressor. The young man was backing away from her." "I have it all on video too," called out a teenage girl from the crowd, waving her phone. "She tried to hit him first. He was just defending himself." Several other onlookers nodded in agreement. "All right," Officer Martinez said, raising her hands to calm the situation. "Let's take this one step at a time. Ms. Davidson, we're going to need to see your driver's license and registration." "This is ridiculous," Patricia muttered, but she reluctantly retrieved the documents from her purse and car. While Officer Collins took Patricia's information, Officer Martinez turned to Tyler. "Mr. Hayes, I understand you have video of the incident?" "Yes, ma'am," Tyler confirmed, stopping his recording and navigating to the beginning of the video. "It shows everything from when I first noticed her arguing with this woman about parking in the handicapped spot." Officer Martinez watched the footage carefully, her expression remaining neutral. When it reached the point where Patricia lunged at Tyler, she nodded. "I see. And you were recording because—" "I run a YouTube channel called Public Encounters," Tyler explained. "I document situations like this to raise awareness about how people behave in public spaces." "So you were doing this for views?" Patricia interjected. "See? He was provoking me for internet fame." "Recording in a public place isn't provocation, Ms. Davidson," Officer Martinez replied evenly. "It's protected by law." After viewing several more witness videos and taking statements from Eleanor and other bystanders, the officers conferred briefly before approaching Patricia. "Ms. Davidson," Officer Collins began, "based on the evidence and witness statements, we're issuing you a citation for unauthorized parking in a handicapped zone, which carries a fine of $250. Patricia's mouth fell open in shock. "Additionally," Officer Martinez continued, "we're placing you under arrest for attempted assault. You have the right to remain silent." "Arrest?" Patricia's voice rose to a shriek. "You can't be serious! Over a parking space?" "No, ma'am. Over you attempting to physically attack another person," Officer Martinez corrected as she gently took Patricia's arm. "Please turn around and place your hands behind your back." As the officers handcuffed a now sobbing Patricia, the crowd murmured in a mixture of satisfaction and discomfort. No one enjoyed seeing someone in such distress, but the general consensus seemed to be that she had brought this on herself. "This isn't over," Patricia called out as she was led toward the patrol car. "I know people. I'll sue all of you." Once Patricia was secured in the back of the cruiser, Officer Collins approached Tyler. "Mr. Hayes, we'll need a copy of that video for evidence. You can email it to the address on this card." He handed Tyler his business card. "Of course, officer," Tyler agreed. "I'm happy to cooperate in any way." "And just a word of advice," Officer Collins added more quietly. "Be careful with how you present this online. She may well follow through on that threat to sue, even if she doesn't have a case." Tyler nodded. "I understand. I'll be factual and let the video speak for itself." As the police cruiser pulled away with Patricia in the back seat, Tyler turned back to his camera. "Well, guys, that's how quickly a situation can escalate when entitlement meets consequences. If you're watching this and thinking about parking in a handicapped spot without a permit, don't. It's not just illegal, it's taking a space from someone who genuinely needs it." He turned the camera toward Eleanor, who was standing nearby. "Ma'am, would you mind sharing your thoughts on what happened here today?" Eleanor smiled wearily. "I just wish people would be more considerate. Those spaces aren't a convenience for the able-bodied, they're a necessity for people like me. I hope this young woman learned something from today." Tyler nodded, then addressed his audience once more. "If you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs to see it. And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life encounters like this one. I'll update you all when I learn more about what happens with this case." As the crowd dispersed and Tyler prepared to leave, he couldn't help but wonder what the fallout from this incident would be. Little did he know, his video was about to change both his life and Patricia's in ways neither of them could have anticipated. Tyler Hayes sat at his desk, staring at his computer screen in disbelief. It had been just 48 hours since he'd uploaded the video entitled "Karen Gets Instant Karma After Attacking YouTuber in Parking Lot." And the numbers were unlike anything he'd ever seen before. 3 million views, over 250,000 likes, nearly 40,000 comments, and his subscriber count had jumped from 475,000 to well over 600,000, and still climbing. "This is insane," he muttered, scrolling through the comments section. "Wow, she really thought she could just assault you and get away with it? The entitlement is real exclamation mark. That poor older lady with the cane just trying to stand up for what's right. We need more people like her in the world." Am I the only one who feels a little bad for the Karen? I mean, she clearly messed up big time, but getting arrested seems harsh. Tyler handled this perfectly, stayed calm, defended himself without excessive force, and let justice take its course. Respect. His phone buzzed with a text from his friend Marcus. "Dude, you're trending on Twitter. Draw parking lot Karen is everywhere." Tyler quickly opened Twitter, and sure enough, the hashtag was gaining momentum. Screenshots and clips from his video were being shared across multiple platforms, sparking heated debates about entitlement, justice, and the ethics of recording public confrontations. More concerning, though, was that internet sleuths had already identified Patricia Davidson. Her real estate profile and social media accounts were being flooded with negative comments. Some people had even found her office phone number and were calling to complain. This wasn't what Tyler had intended. Yes, he wanted to document bad behavior and its consequences, but he never wanted to unleash an online mob. He quickly added a pinned comment to his video. "Hey everyone, I appreciate all the support, but please don't try to identify or contact the woman in this video. The legal system is handling the situation, and additional harassment won't help anything. This video is about accountability, not revenge." But the internet machine was already in motion. By that evening, local news outlets had picked up the story. Tyler's phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Hello? Is this Tyler Hayes? This is Alicia Gonzalez from Channel 7 News. We'd like to interview you about your viral video." Before he knew it, Tyler was sitting in the Channel 7 studio, bright lights shining on him as Alicia prepared to go live. Tonight, we're speaking with Tyler Hayes, whose video of a confrontation at Palmetto Grove Shopping Center has taken social media by storm. Alicia began, turning to Tyler. "Tell us, what made you start recording that day?" Tyler shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "I heard raised voices and saw a woman with a cane being berated for simply pointing out that someone had parked illegally in a handicapped spot. I record these types of public interactions for my YouTube channel to document how people behave in society." "And did you anticipate that the situation would escalate the way it did?" "Not at all." Tyler shook his head. "I was just documenting what was happening. I never expected her to become physically aggressive." "Some critics have suggested that you were intentionally provoking the woman by recording her. How do you respond to that?" Tyler took a deep breath. "I understand why some might see it that way, but I maintain a respectful distance and don't engage unless spoken to. The camera can make people uncomfortable if they know they're doing something wrong, but discomfort isn't the same as provocation. And what about concerns that these types of videos encourage online harassment?" This was the question Tyler had been dreading. "I'm actually really troubled by some of the response. I've asked my viewers not to try to identify or contact the woman involved. This video was about documenting a specific incident of entitled behavior and its consequences, not about ruining someone's life. I believe in accountability, not punishment." The interview continued for several more minutes, with Tyler trying to strike a balance between standing by his actions and expressing concern about the video's unintended consequences. Meanwhile, across town, Patricia Davidson sat in her attorney's office, her face drawn and pale. "It's a disaster, Richard," she said, pushing her phone across the desk to show her lawyer the latest social media posts about her. "I've received death threats. My broker has put me on administrative leave. My ex-husband is using this to try to modify our custody agreement, all over a stupid parking space." Richard Bennett, a seasoned attorney who had known Patricia for years, sighed heavily. "The video evidence is pretty damning, Patricia. You clearly attempted to strike Mr. Hayes." "I was provoked," she insisted. "He was filming me without permission." Which is completely legal in a public place, Richard reminded her gently. Look, the DA is offering a plea deal. Assault charges reduced to disorderly conduct, a $500 fine, anger management classes, and 40 hours of community service. Patricia's eyes widened. Community service? Like picking up trash by the highway? I can't do that. What if a client sees me? It's better than the alternative, Richard cautioned. If this goes to trial with that video as evidence, you could be looking at actual jail time. Patricia collapsed back in her chair, the fight finally going out of her. How did this happen, Richard? How did one bad decision on one bad day turn into this? She gestured hopelessly at her phone, where notifications of new negative comments continued to appear. The world has changed, Richard said simply. We all carry cameras now, and bad moments don't just disappear anymore. They get preserved and shared. That evening, as Tyler scrolled through more comments and messages, one email caught his attention. The subject line read, "From Patricia Davidson, please read." His finger hovered over the delete button, but curiosity won out. He opened it. "Mr. Hayes," it began. "My attorney would advise me not to contact you directly, but I felt I needed to. I want to apologize for my behavior that day. I was under immense personal and professional stress, but that's no excuse for how I acted. I parked illegally, I was rude to an elderly woman, and I tried to strike you. All of these actions were wrong. I'm not asking you to take down your video. The damage to my reputation is already done, but I am asking you to consider what the aftermath has been like. I've received threats. My career is in jeopardy. My children are being harassed at school. Is that proportional justice for what I did? I've accepted a plea deal and will be doing community service and anger management. I'm trying to make amends. All I ask is that you consider mentioning to your followers that online harassment isn't the answer. Sincerely, Patricia Davidson." Tyler sat back, conflicted. On one hand, her actions that day had been indefensible. On the other, did she deserve to have her entire life destroyed over one terrible mistake? He clicked reply and began to type. 6 months had passed since the parking lot confrontation that changed both Tyler and Patricia's lives. The autumn air carried a refreshing crispness as Tyler set up his camera in a small community garden on the outskirts of town. His channel, Public Encounters, had undergone a transformation in the months following the viral video. While he still documented instances of public behavior, he had shifted his focus to highlighting positive interactions and community-building efforts. His subscriber count now stood at just over 1 million, a milestone he had once only dreamed of reaching. Today was special. After weeks of negotiation and careful consideration, Tyler was about to conduct an interview that many of his viewers had requested, but few thought would ever happen. Patricia Davidson arrived precisely on time, dressed casually in jeans and a simple blouse, a far cry from the polished, designer-clad woman from the parking lot. She approached tentatively, offering a small wave as she spotted Tyler. "Thank you for agreeing to this," Tyler said as they shook hands. Patricia nodded. "I'm nervous, but I think it's important. For both of us." They sat on a bench surrounded by autumn flowers, the camera positioned to capture them both. Tyler checked the frame one last time before pressing record. "Hey everyone, Tyler here with a very special episode of Public Encounters. Today I'm joined by Patricia Davidson, who many of you will recognize from what became known as the Parking Lot Karen video." Patricia winced slightly at the nickname, but maintained her composure. "Patricia reached out to me a few months ago, and after several conversations, we decided to sit down together to talk about what happened that day, the aftermath, and what we've both learned. Patricia, thank you for being here." She took a deep breath. "Thank you for having me, Tyler. This isn't easy, but I think it's necessary." "Let's start with the obvious question," Tyler began. "Looking back at that day, what was going through your mind?" Patricia's eyes lowered briefly. Honestly? Stress. Overwhelming stress. My real estate business was struggling. I was going through a bitter divorce. My kids were having trouble adjusting to our new reality. None of that excuses what I did, but I was at my breaking point. You parked in that handicapped spot. I did, she acknowledged. And it was selfish and entitled. I convinced myself it would just be for a few minutes, that no one who really needed it would come along in that short time. But of course, someone did need it. She paused. Eleanor, the woman with the cane. I've since reached out to her privately to apologize. And when you saw me recording? Patricia shook her head ruefully. I panicked. I already felt exposed and embarrassed being called out for parking illegally, and then suddenly there was a camera documenting my worst moment. Instead of just admitting I was wrong and moving my car, I doubled down. I got aggressive. I tried to hit you. She looked directly at the camera. And there's absolutely no excuse for that behavior. It was wrong. Tyler nodded. What happened after your arrest? Well, as most people know, I was initially charged with assault. Through my attorney, I accepted a plea deal for disorderly conduct. I paid a fine, completed 40 hours of community service at a local food bank, and attended anger management classes. She smiled faintly. The anger management was actually really helpful. I learned a lot about myself. And professionally? Patricia's expression grew more somber. My broker put me on administrative leave initially. After the video went viral, I lost several listings. Some clients didn't want to work with the parking lot lady. I eventually left that brokerage and started over at a smaller firm. I'm slowly rebuilding my client base. The video generated a lot of online reaction, Tyler prompted. How did that affect you? Patricia took a moment before answering. It was devastating. People sent hate mail. Someone doxed me, published my home address online. I received death threats. My children were bullied at school. For weeks, I was afraid to go out in public because people would recognize me and start filming again. She turned to face Tyler directly. I want to be clear. I deserved consequences for my actions. I broke the law. I was rude to an elderly woman. I tried to assault you. All of that warranted legal punishment. But the online mob justice that followed, the harassment of my family, that felt disproportionate. Tyler nodded thoughtfully. That's actually something I wanted to address. After our email exchange, I posted a video asking people to stop the harassment, but by then it had taken on a life of its own. Looking back, I think I could have done more from the beginning to prevent that kind of pile-on. That's something I've changed about how I approach these videos now. How so? Patricia asked. I'm more careful about blurring faces and removing identifying information, Tyler explained. I focus more on the behavior than the person. And I explicitly tell my viewers that documenting bad behavior is about awareness and accountability, not punishment or harassment. He turned to the camera. That's actually a message I want to emphasize to everyone watching. The goal of these videos should never be to destroy someone's life. We all have bad days. We all make mistakes. The difference now is that those mistakes can be captured and shared with millions instantly. Trisha nodded in agreement. I've had to accept that the video will always be out there. It's part of my digital footprint now. But I'm trying to use it as a learning experience, both for myself and maybe for others. What have you learned? Tyler asked. So much, Patricia said with a small laugh. Obviously, never to park in a handicapped spot again. But beyond that, I've learned about entitlement and privilege. I've learned about the importance of taking a breath before reacting. And I've learned that one moment of poor judgment can have lasting consequences in today's world. Tyler smiled. Those are valuable lessons. What about you? Patricia asked. Has this experience changed how you approach your channel? Tyler nodded. Absolutely. While I still believe in documenting public behavior, I'm more conscious of the potential real-world impact of these videos. I'm trying to balance accountability with compassion, and I've started highlighting positive encounters too, moments where people show kindness or stand up for what's right in constructive ways. He turned back to the camera. Which brings me to an announcement. Patricia and I have been working together on a new project. Patricia smiled. After completing my community service at the food bank, I realized how much I enjoyed giving back. So Tyler and I are organizing a fundraiser to support accessibility improvements for local businesses. We're calling it Save the Space. The goal is to help small businesses that might struggle financially to make their locations more accessible for people with disabilities, Tyler added, and it all started because of a parking space. As they discussed the details of their initiative, the tension that had initially surrounded their meeting gradually dissolved. By the end of the interview, they were speaking comfortably, occasionally even laughing together. Before we wrap up, Tyler said, is there anything else you'd like to say to the viewers? Patricia thought for a moment. Just that I'm sorry. I'm sorry for my behavior that day, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to try to make something positive come from it. And I hope that anyone watching this who might be going through a difficult time remembers to take a breath before reacting. One bad decision in a moment of stress can change everything. Tyler nodded. And from my side, I want to thank Patricia for her courage in coming forward. It would have been easier to stay angry or to hide, but she chose to face this head-on and try to make amends. He looked directly into the camera. If you've watched this far, I hope you'll consider supporting our Save the Space initiative. The link is in the description below. And as always, if you found this conversation valuable, please give it a thumbs up, share it with someone who might benefit from it, and subscribe for more content focused on how we treat each other in public spaces. As they wrapped up the interview and Tyler stopped recording, Patricia let out a long breath. That was harder than I expected. You did great, Tyler assured her. Thank you for being willing to do this. Do you think it will make a difference? She asked. Will people see that I'm more than just that one terrible moment? Tyler considered the question carefully. Some will, some won't. The internet has a long memory, but not always a lot of nuance. But I think putting this out there gives people a chance to see the whole picture, the consequences, the growth, the humanity behind the viral moment. As they packed up the equipment and prepared to leave the garden, an elderly woman with a cane approached them, accompanied by a younger woman who appeared to be her daughter. Excuse me, the older woman said. Aren't you the young man from that parking video? And you're the woman who was in the handicapped space? Tyler and Patricia exchanged a nervous glance. Yes, that's us, Tyler confirmed cautiously. The woman smiled. I just wanted to say thank you. My daughter showed me your original video, and now she never lets me talk her out of using my handicap placard, even when I say I can manage without it. She turned to Patricia. And I saw your apology video. It takes courage to admit when you're wrong. Not many people can do that these days. As the woman and her daughter continued on their way, Patricia turned to Tyler with tears in her eyes. Maybe it will make a difference after all. Tyler nodded, smiling. One conversation at a time. Don't forget to like and subscribe, right? Patricia added with a hint of a smirk. Tyler laughed. Now you're getting it. As they walked together toward the parking lot, where Patricia's car was properly parked in a regular space, they reflected on how a single heated moment had led them here. Two strangers brought together by conflict, now working together to create something positive from the experience. It wasn't the ending either of them could have predicted that day in the scorching parking lot. But as Tyler would tell his viewers in a follow-up video, sometimes the most meaningful connections come from our most difficult moments. 3 months later, Tyler stood before a crowd gathered outside a small local cafe. A freshly installed ramp gleamed in the winter sunlight, leading up to the entrance that had previously been accessible only by stairs. And with that, Tyler announced, handing a large pair of ceremonial scissors to Eleanor Williams, who had become something of a local celebrity herself. We officially open the 10th business made more accessible through the Save the Space initiative. The crowd applauded as Eleanor cut the ribbon, Her arthritis now managed well enough that she only occasionally needed her cane. Behind her stood Patricia, smiling genuinely as she chatted with the cafe owner about the positive impact the renovation would have on his business. Tyler's channel had evolved significantly. While public encounters still documented instances of both positive and negative behavior, it now also featured a recurring segment called Making Amends, highlighting stories of people who, like Patricia, had taken responsibility for their mistakes and worked to make things right. The fundraiser had exceeded all expectations, raising over $150,000 for accessibility improvements to local businesses. National news outlets had picked up the story, focusing on the unlikely partnership between a Karen and the YouTuber who had captured her meltdown. If you'd told me a year ago that I'd be working side by side with Patricia Davidson on a community project, Tyler said in an interview with a local reporter, I'd have said you were crazy. But that's the thing about life. Sometimes your biggest challenges lead to your greatest opportunities. Patricia, overhearing this, walked over to join the conversation. And sometimes your worst moments can become the catalyst for your best work, she added. I'm not proud of what I did that day, but I am proud of what we've accomplished since then. The reporter nodded, scribbling notes. So what's next for the Save the Space initiative? Tyler and Patricia exchanged a glance. We're taking it statewide, Tyler announced. We've partnered with several disability advocacy groups to identify businesses across Florida that want to improve accessibility but need financial assistance. And we're developing an educational program for schools, Patricia added, teaching kids about the importance of accessibility and respect for rules that protect vulnerable populations. As the interview concluded and the celebration continued around them, Tyler pulled Patricia aside. I've been meaning to ask you something, he said. How are things with your kids and the ex-husband? Patricia's expression softened. Better, actually. Martin saw the follow-up video we did together and reached out. He said he was impressed by how I'd handled everything. We're in family counseling now, working on better co-parenting. The kids are doing well. They even helped with the fundraiser at their school. That's great to hear, Tyler said sincerely. And work? Slowly building back, she replied. Some clients still recognize me, but now it's often from our accessibility work, rather than just the parking lot lady. I've actually started specializing in helping clients find accessible housing options. Turns out there's a real need for realtors who understand those requirements. Tyler nodded approvingly. You've really turned this around. With your help, Patricia acknowledged. You could have just posted that video and moved on. Most people would have. Maybe, Tyler shrugged. But then we wouldn't be here now, would we? And honestly, this is way more satisfying than just capturing gotcha moments. As they rejoined the celebration, Tyler noticed several attendees with their phones out, recording the event. But this time, the cameras didn't represent threat or humiliation. They were capturing a moment of community achievement, of growth, of redemption. Later that evening, as Tyler edited the footage for his next video, he paused on a frame that captured Patricia laughing with Eleanor, the two women who had been adversaries, now united in a common cause. He added a voiceover. So here's the thing about those viral Karen videos we all love to watch. Yes, they show people at their worst moments. Yes, those people deserve to be held accountable for their actions. But what happens after the camera stops rolling? What happens after the consequences? That's the part we rarely see. Patricia Davidson could have disappeared after her video went viral. She could have changed her name, moved away, hidden from the aftermath. Instead, she chose to face it head on. She apologized. She made amends. She turned her mistake into a mission. And maybe that's the real lesson here. In a world where our worst moments can be captured and shared with millions, perhaps what matters most is not the fall, but how we choose to get back up. If you're watching this and you've ever made a mistake, big or small, know that it doesn't have to define you. It can refine you. It can redirect you. It can, if you let it. become the beginning of something better than you ever imagined. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of accountability and redemption. This is Tyler Hayes with Public Encounters, reminding you that every interaction is an opportunity to show who you really are. He hit save, satisfied with the message. The video would go live tomorrow, likely garnering hundreds of thousands of views. But unlike that first viral hit, this one wasn't about division or punishment or entertainment at someone else's expense. It was about healing, growth, and the unexpected connections that can form when we choose to see beyond our worst moments to the best possibilities. Outside, snow had begun to fall lightly, covering the world in a clean, fresh blanket of white. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new encounters, new opportunities. But for tonight, Tyler was content knowing that sometimes, just sometimes, the internet that could so quickly tear people apart could also bring them together in the most unexpected ways.